Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. I'm your host, attorney Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning attorney and the owner of the law offices of Elsa W. Smith, where our mission is to empower women through estate planning. Through our guests and educational content, my hope is to provide you with glimpses of what an empowered woman is and what she needs to win. Today's guest is a wonderful example of an empowered woman. She is author, attorney, entrepreneur, and thought leader, Carolyn Elefant. I am pleased to feature her as a guest as we celebrate Women's History Month. Let me tell you a bit about Carolyn. She is the owner of the law offices of Carolyn Elefant, a national practice founded in 1993 that fights climate change through representation of renewable energy companies and sustainability entrepreneurs on permitting and business matters. She also defends in federal and appellate courts, municipalities, environmental justice communities, and landowners nationwide that are impacted by pipeline infrastructure and eminent domain. In 2002, Carolyn created the blog myshingle.com, the longest running blog on solo and small law firm practice, and is responsible for helping thousands of lawyers launch their own law firms. She is dubbed the patron saint of solo and small firms. Carolyn writes and speaks on topics including starting a modern law firm in the digital age, how law firms can leverage technology to compete with large firms, the need for regulatory and ethics reform to ensure the sustainability of small law firm practices, and the role of women owned law firms in achieving gender equality in the legal profession. Most recently, Carolyn released the third and substantially revised edition of Solo by Choice: How to Start Your Own Law Firm and Be the Lawyer You Always Wanted to Be, which achieved #1 bestseller status on Amazon. Listen, Carolyn has many other achievements, but this is only a 30-minute show. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Carolyn Elefant. Hi, Carolyn, and welcome to the show.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for such a wonderful introduction.
Oh, it's so well deserved. And I've been looking forward to this interview. You are such a rock star, and like I said, such a thought leader. So I'm really excited to interview you. So because we've got a lot to talk about, let's jump right into it. I purchased your amazing book, Solo by Choice, the latest edition, of course. And I'm gonna start off by reading an excerpt from chapter 7 of the book. And the chapter 7 deals with mission and mindset. Call it a vision, a mission, or purpose, or a purpose. But all successful law practices begin with a why, as in, why does your firm exist? And why should others care about it? Having said that, what is your why, Carolyn?
So that's a great question. I think my why has actually changed over time. When I started back in 1993, I really wanted to make the type of law that I practice, energy regulatory law, accessible to newer entrants into the industry. Because at that time, really, your choice was basically big law and big fees. That still is my mission. My rates are competitive with larger firms. But I also, over time, realized that in addition to just representing clients on a one-off basis, I could also leave clients or leave the state of the law better than when I found it. And so now I consider my why to also be a desire to change the energy regulatory space and make it something that's more equitable, or just change the law, help clients in their individual cases, and change the law for future clients.
I love it, and I love your passion, which is anybody who knows you knows how passionate you are about the work that you do. I'd like us to, to get to know you a little deeper, and if you could describe the path that got you to what I call rock star status here today. And the follow up question is, can you share a couple of significant hurdles that you've experienced?
Sure. So I guess like many attorneys, I went to law school without being 100% sure if I wanted to practice law, but I did like to write, and I felt that law school would help with that. And of course, little do we know that law school doesn't necessarily improve writing. It takes all the creativity out of it. Um, I started my career working for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. I practiced at large firms for some time, and I was eventually told that I wasn't on partnership track. I had always thought about starting my own firm because when I worked for other people, I always wanted to do things my way. And so that should have been a signal that maybe I should have been my own boss. And so I launched my own firm in 1993. And I felt like a kid in a candy store the first couple of weeks or months out. I mean, you're running around, you don't know what you're doing. You're trying to set up your business, serve the clients, learn the law, look as if you know what you're doing. And I just found it exhilarating. I mean, it was terrifying, but it was also like being on a roller coaster ride. So I kind of got the sense that it was for me. And over time, I always say I started solo because I didn't feel like I had that many options, but I stayed solo because I had children and I wanted to have a more flexible schedule. And so I worked when my daughters were young, and that's when I got the idea for starting my shingle blog. And at that time, there were very few bloggers. Probably the first 50 or 60 law bloggers. And I was the only person writing about solo and small firm practice. And there weren't a lot of people reading blogs, let alone blogs about solo and small firm practice. But again, it was just something that I really enjoyed writing about. It was a space I like to cover. And so I continued doing it. And eventually the world caught up and people started reading blogs, started becoming interested in entrepreneurship. And that kind of expanded my audience. So that's sort of how I got from there to here. And I guess along the way, I mean, in addition to, everybody faces different types of challenges. I think that one of the ones that I was very unexpected to me and surprising was in 2014, my husband was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and 10 months later, he passed away. So during that time, almost overnight, I became the sole supporter for my family. I became a caretaker. I don't like to use the word caretaker when talking about a spouse because I was doing what any spouse would do. I had a daughter who was starting college, and it was just completely overwhelming. And I found that the best way to deal with it was, instead of kitchen sinking, as I say, just thinking about the million different things you have to do every day and how if one goes wrong, everything falls apart. I just kind of focused on the task at hand, just getting through the day, getting through the hour. And I remember sometimes, even when I would sit at my desk, as a physical reminder, like when I couldn't focus, I would go like this, like blinders on, to kind of block everything else out and just focus on getting that brief done, getting that sentence written, just one step at a time, one foot in front of another. I felt that had worked the best. And it, and so that was sort of my solution to getting through things, was just being very narrow and not and just blocking everything else out.
Let me pause you for a second, because I just want to spotlight like the attention on that dynamic, which is so real and something that impacts so many of us, particularly solopreneurs and those who are in small law firms. We still have lives, we still have loved ones. And when something like this happened, like, a serious illness that affects someone that we love, it has a real impact. And a lot of times when you're at larger firms, depending on the culture, they may not be as understanding of the fact that you've got, an ill spouse, or maybe a parent. If you're tasked with, you're responsible for caring for that parent, they may not be as understanding. So that, if nothing else, is one of the many advantages of you calling the shots, of you having your law practice so you can adjust your schedule and your life to accommodate things that like this that arise. Don't you agree?
Yes, I do. And sometimes people think, well, didn't you get worried? Didn't you think, that you wouldn't have business coming through the door? But I feel like I have more control over myself. I would rather have control over myself, or I feel like I have more control over myself than having decisions or control be in somebody else's hands. And as you point out, being in a firm, if they're not understanding about a deadline that you have, that's much more stressful to me than figuring out where I'm going to find my next client. I know how to find clients. I've done that before. What I don't know is what somebody else is going to do in terms of treating me or helping, addressing my schedule. So I completely agree with you 100% on something like that.
To dovetail on that question, how does being a woman impact how you navigate the legal profession?
So that's a really good question, and obviously the topic of your or one of the things that you address in your podcast. I mean, I think that it's again something that has changed over time. I know when I started my firm and I was a young woman, it was just really difficult to get people to take me seriously, and I don't know if it was because of gender. I suspect it was when somebody said, well, your husband can support you when you start your firm. That's kind of a gender, seems to me to be a gender related jab. And so initially it was just getting people to take me seriously. As my career has progressed, and you begin to be recognized for your work and establish a reputation, that's been less of an issue. And what I feel now is important is to be able to support and advance other women in the legal profession. I feel a real responsibility to that because that was something I didn't have, and that's no disrespect. It was a different world then. There were fewer women doing what I was doing. So now, being a woman in the profession, I feel a responsibility to help other women, to advance other women, and to ensure that there are future generations of women who are also succeeding and who can eventually surpass me.
Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why this show means so much to me, because I take great care in selecting people that I want to share the platform with, and I want people who understand the mission, not only, you know, understand that other women from, no matter what background, professional background, are watching, but our girls are watching too. And it's so important for them to see, women like you, women like me, just being out there, taking risk, and just spreading the word of, women's empowerment, and having the courage to start your own practices. So there's so much synergy with what you do and what I do. Um, wow. Did you also, again, staying on that question for a second, um, did you find that dealing with kind of an old boys network in the law was like one of the hurdles that you encountered, and that wall?
Yes, in my industry, initially when I started in it, there was definitely quite an old boys network, both old just in existence, and also my profession trends older. So there are people who practice into their 80s or even greater than that. And so that was something that was a little bit challenging to deal with. But there were a couple of people who were, sort of part of that group who were helpful to me, which I appreciated. And some of the others, I just felt like I wasn't going to make any progress, and that's why I turned to trying to attract the clients that these people weren't serving. And it's a big enough industry and a changing industry because of new technologies and new developments, new focus on climate change, that there's this whole new generation of companies, dealing with renewable energy and wind, solar, battery storage, that I was able to attract. They were much more progressive in their thinking. Let's just leave it at that.
Trust me, sister, I know. I completely understand. So if you would, do you have like at least like 3 tips, for solopreneurs or those of, who are considering going that route?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is if it's something you're thinking of, just start. Planning is always important, but I see so many lawyers suffering from analysis paralysis, thinking about, should I do it? Should I not do it? And then suddenly 5 years, 10 years go by and you haven't done it. And then for one reason or another, maybe you're not positioned to. So I would say just go and just start. And the other thing is when you start and when you're out there, these opportunities begin to come your way that you wouldn't have known about. Like many lawyers who are working at a firm who haven't attracted business think, well, if I start my own firm, will I attract business? Well, the thing is maybe people didn't want to hire you because you were working at a firm where they were billing you out at like $400 an hour. If you start your own firm and you're billing at, $300, people will learn about you and come to you. So if you just start, you'll see opportunities coming. That's why it's so important to start. I think the second thing is the importance of ownership and understanding the talents that you bring. And I think that's important whether you work for somebody, even if you work for somebody else, is really to recognize the talents that you bring to the table and to own those talents, not let other people take credit for them or take that away from you. And I think ownership is very transformative too, because you see yourself differently. Instead of going to somebody and asking for business and feeling like a beggar, you feel like you have something to bring to the table and something to offer. And I would say the third thing would probably be it's not all about work. It's about defining your own success and defining the kind of life you want to live and figuring out what piece of that life you want your work to occupy. And for some people, it legitimately is 95%. There are people who love their work and have so much passion for it. They want to spend all their time doing it. And that's great. But if that's not you and you want to be able to take hikes, spend time with family members, take trips with your college friends across country, and have your work support that lifestyle, there's nothing wrong with that too. That can fall into your definition of success. You can't look at what other people are doing when it comes time to, defining the kind of life you want to lead. So I think the focus should be on your life and not just your work, which is one component of your life.
One of the things I want to go back to the taking ownership tip that you presented. I'm thinking of young female associate, maybe second or third year at a firm where, say, she's doing the research, she may even draft the pleadings, but her name's not on the signature line. How does that woman examples of what she can do to take ownership of her work?
So it is difficult in that situation. I think that if an attorney in that situation has any contact with the clients, I think the attorney can make her contribution known to the clients. Sometimes clients will come to your rescue and say, hey, shouldn't we have Miss X's name on this pleading? So trying to build a relationship with the client and make the client one of your allies. I think also, at some point you can just always ask, talk to the attorney that you're working with and ask whether your name should be put on the pleading. And if they say no, see what kind of explanation they give. I mean, in kind of unique situations, maybe there's a reason for not including it, but if it doesn't appear that the firm has a real justification for that, you may want to start thinking about what your other, what your other options are.
I agree. And, it's incredible to me that, we as women, I mean, a lot of times it may be because, for financial reasons, we want that, security, supposed security of, yeah, I do say supposed security of being with a firm, that prompts us to kind of take things a little longer, put up with things a little longer than we should. And I highlighted that example because that's very real. And I know that's something that's, you think that you somehow have to pay your dues. You have to, carry the partner's briefcase, around for like a couple of years until you're worthy enough to sit, to first chair, a trial if you're a litigator, or or have your name actually, appear on the
Right.
pleading. It's yeah, it's definitely a challenge. So let me ask you how, you know I think your story is so amazing and it's so inspiring. But describe ways that you've had to recreate yourself.
No, I think it's always important to recreate yourself throughout your career. I mean, my first recreation was going from being somebody who was working for a firm to being an owner of my own practice and learning how to deal with clients, how to handle the administrative part of things that had been handled by others at my firm. Um, then, as time passed, just with the death of my husband, I've had to recreate myself just because, when you're married to somebody or share your life with somebody, it's not just the day-to-day things or having additional financial support. It's also just you have this life and the plan together. And so things that I thought I might be doing now are different. And also with my daughters, when you're a parent, you spend time raising your kids, and then when they're out of the house and you have all this time to yourself again, you have to find different things to do. So right now, I'm kind of and also I've been practicing in this area for the fields I'm in for a long time, and while I still enjoy it, there may be other areas that I'm trying to explore. So I'm just really now, I consider myself to be in a very exploratory stage. I'm looking and thinking about different things to do, but I don't think I've quite recreated myself yet. But I'm excited that there are options and possibilities out there. So it's not something that's scary. It's something that's maybe overwhelming, but I'm
Hmm.
still in the process of becoming, as Michelle Obama said, best title for a book ever. Great book too. Hope you
Indeed.
can get her on your show.
That would be a sweet deal. Um, this question came up as I was listening to you, and I wanted to ask you, who inspires you? You inspire so many people, but who inspires you?
Huh, that is a really good question. I will say, since I mentioned Michelle Obama, I she is very inspiring. In
Mhm.
reading her book, I learned so many things about her that I didn't know about. For example, I knew she worked at a big firm and then
Mm.
she went off to become counsel at a hospital, but I didn't realize that. I thought, oh, she went to Harvard Law School, she worked at a big firm, she'd have no problem finding another job. She was out there pounding the pavements. I mean, it and then, when she was thrown into the job of being first lady, I just love how she took a situation that she wasn't 100% on board with, and not only made it her own, but just excelled at it. So the ability to take that kind of challenging situation and turn it into a legacy, I think is just incredible, and just do it with so much grace and style. And oh gosh, she's just so intelligent too. And her book was one of the most well written autobiographies I've ever read. So I do find that path and how she approaches life just to be really very inspirational.
I love it. And speaking of books, let's turn the attention back to your latest book. Who are the folks that can really benefit from it? We talked about law firms, of course, but can other folks also benefit from your book?
So I think, yeah. So if you're thinking about starting a practice, I think you can benefit. I think also if you've been practicing for a long time, maybe started your firm 20 or 25 years ago and are sort of been on autopilot, maybe want to start something new or build something to grow, I think it can be useful. But I've also been told by other professionals, I've gotten emails from accountants and even a dentist who had read the book, and they said they found it very useful. Just some of the discussion about different related client relations for accountants, some of the technology issues that are in there and the kinds of things you want to look at, and all the different ways that you can market your firm. So I think in many respects, even small business owners of any type providing professional services might find some value in the book.
And how might people purchase a copy of your
Probably
book?
the best way is just to get it on Amazon right now. It's available on Amazon.
Okay, wonderful. Now I understand that you have a new course. Would you please tell us about it?
So the new course will be sort of a course related to the book on starting a law practice. And it's going to go through all of the little steps that people tend to gloss over in, when they're talking about starting. Like they'll say, you'll start your law firm, take care of your accounts, but they won't show you how to get an EIN number or what type of bookkeeping software to use. So it'll be very granular in nature, and people will be able to participate in the class either as a recorded version or through some live sessions. So it hasn't quite launched yet. I think maybe in the next couple of weeks, and the information will be available at the website myshingle.com.
Wonderful. I think about, the work that you've done, and I kind of wish I've known someone like you when I was maybe a 2L in law school, because law schools really don't groom you to run your own firms. They
No.
groom you to work for someone else.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I think, a book like yours should be the kind of required reading, at a minimum, to at least expose lawyers to be on the real possibility of owning your own firm and creating your own legacy. Certainly, there are many benefits from getting the experience of working for someone else, but for those of us, and there are many who took the leap right out of law school and started, they hung up a shingle as soon as they started law school. A book like this is something that I believe is invaluable, an invaluable tool in one arsenal. So, Carolyn, as we're getting close to the top of the hour, how can we follow you on social media?
Okay, so I guess one place, and you can start with my blog, myshingle.com. I'm also on Twitter at Carolyn Elefant. I have my shingle has a Facebook page, and I did start a TikTok account. And I don't post very actively. I am amazed. I like everybody else, I'm addicted to TikTok, but
You're dipping your toe in the TikTok waters.
some of the creativity is just insane. So I'm still practicing with it, but I've got some cute dog videos and
Maybe a
that
cat
I throw
video.
on too. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Carolyn, it has really been a joy and an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. I wish you all the success in the world with your latest book. And again, thank you for being so gracious with your time. Any last words, any comments that you want to share with the audience, either about your book or anything else that you're doing?
No, I don't. I just wanted to thank you so much for having me on the show and just for the entire experience. Everything was just so well organized. You really do a service and a credit to all the guests who appear. So thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Carolyn, I'll talk to you in a little while. Everyone, Carolyn Elefant, please purchase a copy of her book, Solo by Choice, available on Amazon. Carolyn, have a wonderful afternoon. I'll talk with you shortly.
Thanks. Sounds good.
Everyone, what an amazing interview. I knew it would be, and I was just so excited to have her on the show. One of the takeaways that I hope you all got from my interview with Carolyn is not to let anyone or anything limit or define you. You are the author of the story of your life. And Carolyn is a fine example of a person who uses her experience to encourage and empower others. As an estate planning attorney, we empower our clients by crafting comprehensive estate plans, and we give them the power to design their own legacy. Let us do the same for you. If you are in the state of Maryland or the District of Columbia and you need help with your estate plan, give us a call. You've seen the number at the bottom of the screen. I want to thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. I'm Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning attorney, empowering women through estate planning. I'll see you in our next episode. Be well, everyone. Take care.